Now, hello and welcome to this Alabama adventure. Tonight we're going to be doing a little traveling. We're going to be traveling north, even north of the state of Alabama. We're going to be traveling to the great state of North Carolina. A few weeks ago I received an email from a man in North Carolina. I'll call him DB, that's his initials. As you know, we like to keep identities completely secret here on Alabama Adventures, as well as Alabama Bigfoot Society. Anyway, he had found what he thinks are some Bigfoot signs up in North Carolina, and he said he had been going on our website looking at some of the information we have. Said he had also seen some of these YouTube videos where I've shown some pictures of Bigfoot signs and that type of stuff. So he sent me a series of pictures that I want you to look at in just a minute. And before we get started, let me say, as I always do, from the tail end of the mystical Appalachian mountain chain in the heart of the South where Southern hospitality was born, this is Alabama Adventures. Okay, and as I always do whenever we're going somewhere new that we hadn't been, and a place that I don't know anything about, just like North Carolina, I have always wanted to visit North Carolina, and I hope I get up there someday before this life is over. I like to do a little background on what we're talking about and the place that we'll be doing the Alabama Adventure at. This particular series of photos that you're going to see in just a few minutes were made in the Uwharrie National Forest. And I believe that I'm saying that right, Uwharrie or Uwharrie. I'm not exactly sure how it's pronounced. I'm sure people in North Carolina can correct me on it, exactly how it's pronounced. But what I have done is, I always do, I've got this little map here I want you to look at so you have an idea of where Montgomery County in North Carolina is. We have a Montgomery County down here in Alabama also. That's our capital county down here. And anyway, just a lot of things are connected. I'm always looking for the connections and things, I guess, in this life. But anyway, let me tell you a little bit about the Uwharrie National Forest. The Uwharrie National Forest is mainly located in Montgomery County, North Carolina, but it extends into Randolph and Davidson counties as well. The photos we'll be looking at were made near Troy, North Carolina, which is in Montgomery County. So as always, I like to give a little history of the county so I and you will have a little idea of the place that we're going to be talking about. In 2010, the census that was taken there showed that there were about 30,000 people living within this county. The county was formed in 1779 and was named for General Richard Montgomery, who was an American Revolutionary War general. Now, when my friend DB sent these photos, he also sent me a little history on Uwharrie National Park, which I'll tell you some of that in just a few minutes. He mentioned Montgomery County had an Indian mound, and of course, that caught my attention. As you all know, the interest that I have in Native Americans. That's because of the Indian ancestry that I have. And I know now you're sitting there thinking, oh Lord, here we go on another Indian story. And you're right, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Town Creek Indian Mound according to Wikipedia. And Wikipedia is the online encyclopedia. So whatever they say is what I'm sort of going by. Town Creek Indian Mound is a prehistoric archaeological site. It is called a platform mound, and it's located near present-day Mount Gilead, North Carolina. Now, we also have a little community pretty close to where I live that is spelled the same way, and I'll tell you how Gilead, and I guess that's the way that they pronounce it up in North Carolina, Gilead. Now, that's the way I believe it's pronounced, and it may be pronounced the same way that we pronounce this word here in Alabama. To just show you, maybe there's a little connection there. Instead of calling it Gilead, we call it Gilead, Alabama. But anyway, that's just the way things are sometimes pronounced or mispronounced from one place to another. Now, if you don't know what a palisade is, and I didn't, I had to go look it up. A palisade is a wooden fence that surrounds the mound, and it is held up by the logs of the fence or wall being stuck into the ground. And as with all mounds, the builder or builders of this mound is pretty much unknown. They do know that the PD people, who were Indians and were of a South Appalachian Mississippian culture, built the palisade. And that may have been back as far as 950 AD. Now, Town Creek Mound is a very important ceremonial site and was probably occupied as late as 1400. It's unknown why the site was abandoned, but it was most likely abandoned for the same reason that I believe many of the mound sites and Indian villages here in Alabama were abandoned, because they seem to all have been abandoned around about the same time. Whenever the European explorers began coming into this country, explorers such as De Soto, who I believe killed many of the local Indians, they also brought diseases to the Indians, and it was diseases that the Indians weren't immune to, such as smallpox, typhoid fever, and God only knows what else. Now, that's just my opinion of what may have happened to a lot of the Indians around the Indian mounds here in Alabama, and you can decide whether you want to go along with that or not. It doesn't matter to me. I have absolutely no proof that that's what why the Indians abandoned these sites and these villages, but it's very possible if you just think about it. But now back to the PD Indians. They were known for building earthworks for spiritual purposes. Now, the PDs who lived along the PD River were known to have traded with other Indians as far south as Georgia and as far west as into Tennessee. The Town Creek Mound was widely known for important political and religious ceremonies. It was a place for spiritual, ritual purification ceremonies. And because of that, I would love to go there after I got into Indian beliefs and their religion a few years ago, and I learned a lot about that. This must be a very holy and a very powerful place. Clans from different tribes would gather here for the ceremonies which they call busk, B-U-S-K-S. And many high-ranking leaders of the Indians were buried here. What I would give to just walk barefoot on this land up here where Town Creek Indian Mound is, I know if you're into Native American culture and beliefs as I am, I know you could feel the power in the ground in a place like this. This place would be called a power point in Indian beliefs. Now, when these ceremonies and rituals ended, all the clans of the different tribes would gather embers from the sacred fire, and they would carry these embers back to their village and back to their home to start their own fires. They did this to symbolize unity among the people, as well as unity among the tribes. But I'll stop my little background or history lesson, and I'm sorry if it got a little bit long, but there's just so much to tell, and I am very interested in Native American culture, beliefs, and that type of stuff, and especially the Indian mounds. It just fascinates me about the Indian way of life. And I remember as a child, I would watch these TV shows and movies like Wizard of Oz and Bewitched and some of the other shows, westerns, that would have Indians and that type of stuff on there, and they would be doing magic and this kind of stuff, and they actually did at the time. Not in the Wizard of Oz and Bewitched. I know that was all just TV show, but the Indians pretty much could actually do some type of magic. And you know, when you know pretty much what I'm talking about whenever I say I wish I lived in a magical world, and where you could do things like that. And I remember now that I am older, at one time or another, I remember all my grandparents and my parents, all of them saying at one time or another, you do live in a magical world. You just have to open your eyes and see it. I didn't know that then, but I do know it now. It took me a while, but it is a magical, wonderful, beautiful world where we live. You just have to open your eyes and look around. Now, I'm not talking about the people in it. Now, the people in it, or should I say the greed in the people in the world, is what pretty much ruins the world. And I can remember many times my grandfather would be talking about, he and I would be like out hunting or fishing or doing something like that, and he would be showing me this mountain or hill or this particular tree that had maybe changed colors in the fall, and how beautiful it was and what a wonderful place this was to live. And his little saying is or was, the world is a wonderful place to live in. It's the damn sorry people that ruin it. And he had it down pretty much right. And if you ever want to just feel better, like tomorrow, a whole lot better than what you did today, I'll tell you how real quick. I'll give you a quick lesson on that. Tomorrow at your own time, just whenever you have time, your favorite time of day, whatever that may be, just go outside and sit down and look around at nature. And if you can't go out, then just sit and look out the window. But if you can't see nature, like the trees or the skies, clouds, a river or a stream or something like that, just look at what's out there. Just look at the buildings, the bridges, the highways, the cars going by for maybe about 10 minutes. Just watch it and enjoy it for what it is. If you are in a place where you can see nature, that would be great. But man-made structures are just as fascinating and wonderful to look at as nature is sometimes. Just remember that those structures were built by a person that had feelings, hopes, dreams, and had a life just like you do. You may never know them, you may never see them, but they were there at one time, and they did this work. They accomplished something in life. And I used to enjoy a certain time of day in my backyard that I just went out there and sat for 1 hour. I would sit out there for 1 solid hour each day. It was just a religious thing with me. And I did this for a long time. It made me feel good back then. As a matter of fact, I did it for a little over 15 years every day. I very seldom missed a day. The weather would have to be extremely bad. I was out there in the hot weather, the cold weather, the snow, rain, hot sunshine. It didn't matter. Last year, I was made discontinue doing that. Even though my backyard is enclosed in with a fence that you cannot see through. The reason that I had to stop was just because I believe in the paranormal, and one particular person didn't like that. So because of that, because I do believe in the paranormal and I talk about it, I'm unable to actually practice a part of my religion in this particular town. It's just something that I wanted to pass along. It's just something that you need to think about if you're thinking about being a paranormal researcher or investigator, and let people find out about it. Okay, now there's a little bit more information I want to tell you about North Carolina and the Uwharrie forest up there. DB, my friend from North Carolina, sent me some other information on arrowheads and stone tools that were made in this particular area in North Carolina. He says about 500 million years ago that this place in North Carolina was very volcanic. And because of that heat and the explosions and type of stuff that went on in the ground up there, that it made some rocks up there that all the Native Americans really sought after. It was what they wanted to make weapons out of. I guess the weapons lasted longer than just normal rock they picked up off the ground because of this heat curing and that type of stuff that it had gone through. But anyway, he said that there's this one particular place called the Hardaway site where artifacts by the thousands have been excavated in this particular area. And he said because of the quality of the rock and the quality of the arrowheads that these fine Indian craftsmen or craftswomen probably made at this particular time, that this particular area has been compared to the Remington Arms Factory in the quality as well as the quantity of weapons and other stone tools that have come out of this area. And I do want to thank DB for sending me that information about North Carolina and Montgomery County. I always appreciate that. As I said, it kind of gives me a little idea of the place we're talking about, what's going on up there. It always helps out to have a little history of the place that we're fixing to talk about. And now let's get on to this series of photographs that he sent me. Okay, so here we go with the series of pictures that DB sent me from North Carolina. This picture number one, you look at it and sort of see what you think it may be. I'm not going to say a whole lot. I'm just going to let you, unless it's something that I need to explain in one of the pictures. Anyway, we'll just move along to picture number two. This is a pretty common formation. I find a lot of these down here in Alabama. Picture three. And of course we find a lot of these bent trees. But if you'll notice on this one, on the very tip end of the tree where it's been over and touching the ground, it has some other sticks laid on top of that. So what do you think of this? Now number four. Now this was a rock that he was talking about. Some acorns were put in the top of this rock as if something had been cracking these acorns. And in just a little bit I'll show you a pile of acorn hulls, I guess is what you call it. But anyway, let's move on to picture five. Picture five is a formation that we have found similar here in Alabama. Now six. And here's another bent tree, as we find down here. Picture 7. This is the X that we find a lot. This is a very large X. I have found some X's that are this large. But anyway, you look at it and see what you think of it. Okay, number 8. If you'll remember, a while back in Tallapoosa or Clay County, I can't remember exactly which one, we found a formation very similar to this where limbs were piled up around a tree. But I have noticed since we did that video that somebody must have found it, because all those limbs here in Tallapoosa or Clay County here in Alabama are now gone from around that tree. But anyway, let's go on to 9. This is a leaning pole, it looks like, pretty much like we have recently went to finding here in Alabama. And 10. There's another bent tree. 11. This tree here, or pole, seems to be kind of woven between those two trees. 12. This is just another angle of that same one, so to show you how it is kind of woven into the trees. Now, 13. This one looked like it was being a bent tree, but it looked like it broke while something was trying to bend it. And number 14. It's a very good TP right here, is what I would say it is. But you look at it and tell me what you think it is. Number 15. Here's some more of those acorns. 16. Here's the acorn hulls that he was talking about. He said that a place on the ground was pretty much covered up with holes. It looked like where something maybe had been taking a rock, cracking the acorns open, and then eating the meat or whatever fruit, whatever you call it, out of the acorn. Okay, let's go on to 17. You look at that and just see what you think it is. 18. 19. 20. 'Odd looking formation. 21. Here's an X formation with a pole actually laid into X. 22. And here's some very similar to we have found, to where it's wedged in between the trees and not pushed all the way to the ground. 23. This may be the other end of that pole you just looked at. And 24. There's 25. It's a very large X formation. And number 26. Okay. Okay, well now we're bringing this video on to a close, and you let me know what you think about those pictures. You look at them, and they're from, as I said, from North Carolina. Possible Bigfoot signs up in that area. You look at them, let me know what you think. I'll be looking forward to your comments on, are they real Bigfoot signs, or what do you think? Anyway, as I do a lot of times on these videos, I have a few other little pictures I want you to look at. As most of you know, I have a dog named Chico, and for about the last 11 or 12 years, he has been a constant companion. He's always with me, no matter where we go or what we do, and it's still that way now, even though Chico is about 14, and he has slowed down a lot. Of course, I have too. But what I want you to look at is some old pictures that we made back in 2007. He and I were in a whole lot better health and feeling a whole lot better than what we do now, and we just got out making pictures. I used to do a lot of oil paintings and that type of stuff, a lot of artwork, and that's pretty much what I made these pictures for, so I could paint these old houses, and you'll see some trees and some fence lines, and you'll even see a swamp over here that we made a picture of the swamp. The swamp looked good to me that afternoon, and I thought it would make a good painting. I never got around to painting that swamp, but there's just some things in life you can do and some things you can't do, I guess. But anyway, I want you to look at these pictures. if you remember several years ago, there was a man in country music named Vern Gosdin. Matter of fact, Vern Gosdin was a distant relation of mine by marriage. He had a cousin that was named Blake Gosdin, and the swamp was over there toward his Vern Gosdin's cousin's house, and I always called it Gosdin Swamp. And my uncle didn't particularly like that. He said that wasn't his land and it wasn't his swamp. But I always picked at him about that. So anyway, I want you to look at this. It's just some old houses and places of time in the past. And as you look at these houses, as I do a lot of times, I just wonder what type of people lived there and what kind of work they did and what kind of life they had. It's kind of sad to look at these old houses that ain't nobody live in anymore, and it's just something that's just come and gone in time. Anyway, if you want to get you a Vern Gosdin song, maybe Chiseled in Stone would be a good one to listen to while you look at these pictures. But I'm sure Dorothy's going to put on a little background music as they go along. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this Alabama adventure. And now, as we bring this video on to a close, as I always do, I'd like to say hello to my granddaughter Madison. I'd also like to tell you that the Alabama Bigfoot Society is run completely out of pocket, and if you're in a position to where you can and where you would like to make a donation to the Alabama Bigfoot Society, it would be greatly appreciated. All you have to do is to go on our website, alabamabigfootsociety.com, and on the front page you'll find a place to where you can make that donation. If you like what we're doing down here, we hope you give us a like. We hope you share this video with anybody and everybody that you can possibly think of. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, we certainly hope you do subscribe. And I guess with all that being said, that we'll be looking for you next time on the next Alabama adventure, getting close to Bigfoot. And Chico and I will see you on down the road.